name is Leroy Blevins. Welcome to Mysteries and Histories. In this episode here, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about who was the man inside the Patterson and Gimlin Bigfoot film. You know, the man was inside the suit. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about both Bigfoots. And as you know, I said both Bigfoots because if you actually analyze the film and study the film, as people claim they've done, but they really must not put too much effort into it, because when we view the film, when we see the first walk sequence and the second walk sequence, we see there actually are two different types of Bigfoot seen in this film. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up. Okay, this is from the first walk sequence, and this is from the second walk sequence, which I'm going to pull up this frame here. Okay, I recolorized it and, sharpen it and everything else. This is the first part as we see the Bigfoot starts walking when Roger Patterson starts filming his film. This is the second part of the walk sequence after the first part walk sequence goes away, and then there's a big cut, and then after the cut we start seeing the second walk sequence. Okay, but like I said, a lot of people don't know there was actually two Bigfoots here, and you can actually see this by the size and the shape of this creature supposedly in the PG film. Okay, when we sit there and watch this, okay, which I'm going to show you here in a minute, we can see that if this was filmed with the same type of camera, same film, it's supposed to be on the same reel, okay, the creature should be the same size, because it's supposed to be the certain amount of distance that Roger Patterson was filming when he first came up on it, and the second walk sequence, he was almost at the same distance. However, when we view the film and stuff, we're going to see that the Bigfoot that he started filming to begin with was a smaller subject than in the second walk sequence, which is a taller subject. Now, also I want to point out is if you watch the films and stuff like that, and you actually view it, okay, which I'm going to pull this back up again. As you see here, we can see this is a shorter, smaller Bigfoot than this one here. This one here is more bulkier, it's more taller. It walks different. This one here in the first walk sequence, okay, is walking slumped over, okay, with his knees bent and slumped over. But in the second walk sequence, this Bigfoot is walking more upright, and legs are more extended, and the arms are more extended, and they're not drooping or anything else like we see in the first walk sequence, because in the second walk sequence, the Bigfoot's arms moving back and forth, but in the first walk sequence, they're not moving that much, a little bit at a time, but not full swing as we see in the second walk sequence. Now, I'm also going to pull up this frame here, and as you noticed, this is the right foot of this Bigfoot. It's at an angle. It's not, straight like this. It's more at an angle going this way on the right foot. Now, the left foot, okay, is always straight. It goes up and down like this. But with the right foot, it's pushing off when it walks. But when we watch the second walk sequence, as you see here, okay, the foot is straight. Okay, so it's walking this way. It's going like this. Okay, like this. Now, Bigfoot's walking this way now. But in the first walk sequence, the Bigfoot's walking this way, and then he pushes off with the right foot like this as he's walking. Okay. Like I said, if anybody actually analyzes this film and studies this film as they claim they are going to, okay, I ain't saying they never did study it, but like I said, I look for more details, okay? They're going to look at certain things, but I look over the whole subject or anything else, and like I said, I look over each frames. Now, like I pointed out, the first walk sequence, that Bigfoot is shorter, as you see here. It's shorter. Okay, it's around 6'2". However, the Bigfoot in the second walk sequence is around 7'1" or 7'2" now, okay, by the measurements from the film. Okay, so now this Bigfoot went from 6'2" to the height of 7'1", okay. And like I said, when you watch the film and stuff, you can see that in the first walk sequence, he's more slumped over, crouched down a little bit as he's walking, but he's more upright in the second walk sequence. Now, like I said, when we view the film, we see the left foot straight up and down, as you see here, but the right foot kicks off and it pushes off to the right. So when he's walking, it's pushing off like this. Okay, with this left foot going straight up and down still, but the right foot is kicking off. Okay, now, I'm going to point this out again. In the second walk sequence, the Bigfoot's feet motion is just like this. Straight up and down, straight up and down, straight up and down. It don't kick off or nothing. It's straight up and down. Now, everybody knows that Bob Hieronymus claimed he was the man in Bigfoot suit. Okay, so I studied his walk and how he walked and how he motioned, how he does walk with the like crouched over a little bit. Okay, so I study his walk. Now I noticed that he does not match in the second walk sequence. His the structure of the feet, how he's pushing off on the right foot, slumped over and stuff. He's not actually, walking with the same kind of motion we see in the first walk sequence. Okay, so in the second walk sequence, no, that's not Bob Hieronymus. However, in the first walk sequence, that is Bob Hieronymus. And let me show you. As I pointed out here, we see the left foot is in straight up and down motion, and his right foot kicks off, kicks out to the right. Okay, when we watch Bob Hieronymus walk, okay, his left foot is in a straight up and down motion as he kicks off on his right foot. So when he's walking, he's going like this, the same as the Bigfoot. He's kicking off with his right foot. As you see here, his right foot is always in an angle, same as we see in the Bigfoot in the first walk sequence. And the left foot is straight up and down, as you see here. Now, as I point out, which I'm going to show you here again, which I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to, show you this side by side. Okay, I'm going to put this one here. We're going to zoom in right here. See this right here. See how he's slumped over as he's walking, and his right foot's kicking off and everything else. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this one up here, which I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to shrink it though first. And we're going to zoom in on this Bigfoot here. Okay. Now let's pull up this image here again. Okay. And let's pull up this one here. As you see, he's more straight. His legs are more straight up and down than you see in here. His back's more straighter and more up more, right? Okay, now we see the shoulder blade, and this one here is going past the inner arm, but over here is gone. You don't even see the shoulder blade sticking out. Okay, you see the arms drooping down on its side. Here, the arms are more in motion. His head is more straight up than here. His head's cocked down more. This is what we see. And like I point out here, which I'm going to point out here, if I can do it, which I'm going to have to move that over just a little bit, we see the right foot kicking off, but the right foot over here is straight up and down. Okay, and this one here is kicking off to the right as he's continuously walking in the first walk sequence. He's kicking off with his right foot. But when we watch the second walk sequence, the foot's in the same motion as the left foot, up and down right. That's it. Okay, so we can see there's actually two different Bigfoot here. And as you notice, let me bring that back up for, well, I'll bring that to another video and stuff. Now, like I said, when I watched the film, okay, whoop, my seat went down on me. There we go. When we watched the first walk sequence, that is Bob Hieronymus in the suit. Now, this is why today Bob Hieronymus says that they was going to pay him $1,000 to walk this. Well, actually, Bob Hieronymus was in a suit, and that's who we see in the first walk sequence. He did the complete walk sequence. However, what he didn't know is Roger Patterson had somebody else also wear the suit, and he refilmed that second part of the walk sequence. They didn't refilm the first part. They went ahead and refilmed the second part of the walk sequence. Okay, and with Bob thinking that, knowing that he was in that suit, knowing that he did that walk, okay, to him, that second part of the walk sequence is him. The first part is him. Second part is not him. Now, that's why Bob Hieronymus still thinks that he was actually in the second part of the walk sequence, but he wasn't. Because he has done that walk and he's filmed it. This is why Roger Patterson never paid Bob Hieronymus, is because in the beginning, on the original film, you didn't have the first walk sequence in it. It was only the second walk sequence. So they went ahead and used somebody else in that suit when they filmed it. Okay, when they filmed it. So Bob Hieronymus was no longer the man in that suit. It was another man. Okay. Now, when I was going over the tracking dog film and going over other information and stuff, I actually found the man that was in the suit for the second walk sequence. As you see here, this is a frame from the tracking dog film. We see John Green here. John Green is, I think, is like about 6'4", 6'2" to 6'4", I think he is. Okay, well, there's a guy right here. If you see him, he's actually around 6'8", 6'6", 6'8". Okay, this is one of Jim McLaren's friends. He went to Humboldt State University as well. This is him, and he's actually taller than Jim McLaren and John Green. Okay, he came from Humboldt State when he was there doing this filming and stuff like that, and he's around 6'6". I mean 6'7" or 6'8". Okay, he's way taller than, you know, as you see here, he's way taller than John Green. Okay, he's actually bigger and stouter than John Green as well. Now, if you put a suit on this guy right here, which is this is an enlargement of him, which I flipped it and enlarged it. Okay, this man here, okay, would roughly be around with the suit on now. Okay, with the suit on, it would put him, his height, around 7'1" or 7'2" with the suit on. When I studied the backs of the Sasquatch, this Bigfoot, okay, get rid of that one. Bring this back up. When we watch the back, let me shrink this. Okay, when we watch the back motion, we can see his shoulders are the same length as this Bigfoot here. If we raise the buttocks up a little bit higher, it would be right up in this location right here. Okay, so now his arms and his legs are going to be longer. Okay, because he is a very tall man. He does have very long arms. And as you see here, his arms are a little bulky. When you put that suit on, okay, which is going to make you more bulkier than what you are, and he's almost the same size as this Bigfoot here, but just the Bigfoot's just a little bit thicker around the waist stuff, but you got to remember, you got to allow for the padding and everything else. This man here that's in the tracking dog film is actually the man in the suit in the second walk sequence. Now, someone said his initials were KC or CK. I think it was CK. His initials were. I was talking to somebody because they was giving me the rundown of all who was in the tracking dog film and who was around there at that time. Okay, he went to Humboldt State. That's how I knew he went to Humboldt State, and he was one of the men that came from Humboldt State, as we see in John Green's letter. But there was actually two men inside this Bigfoot suit, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull them up. Shrink him. Raise him up and shrink him. So we're going to pull this up, and this up. Okay. Bob Hieronymus was the man in the suit, but he was in his first walk sequence. That's why Bob Hieronymus was never paid, because on the original film, the first walk sequence and second walk sequence that he walked, which was a complete walk sequence, when he walked it, they cut down, they didn't even use that. Okay, and they went ahead and refilmed another man in the suit, which is this guy right here. They filmed him in a suit. Okay, but then in 1968, when Ron Olson got all these films together, he went ahead and added that first walk sequence back in there, and that places Bob Hieronymus back in the PG film, because on original PG film, they didn't use Bob Hieronymus, they used this guy right here. So there was actually two guys in that Bigfoot suit. As I pointed out earlier in this video, you can clearly see that there's actually two different Bigfoots here. There's two different walks here, two different types of walks. Okay, just like I said, the feet motion. If you watch the feet motion, excuse me, I got holes in my mouth. Sorry about that. But if you watch the walk sequence, okay, you can clearly see that the feet motions are totally different between the two. The extension of the legs are totally different between the two. The arm extensions in between them is totally different. The height of them is totally different, and the bulk size is totally different. Just like when you see here, you go from this hip right here to his leg here is the same dimensions as we see here, and this guy here. If you go from this dimension here down to where the feet is, it's the same dimension from here to here. Okay? This man here is the man in the second walk sequence, and Bob Hieronymus is the man in the first walk sequence. Bob Hieronymus didn't know this. This is the reason why he could pass lie detectors test, because Bob Hieronymus himself, he walked it and he was in that suit. He thought it was him in that second walk sequence as well, which is understandable because he did do that walk. But what he didn't know is Roger Patterson them took him completely out from the word go. That's the reason why they never paid him his $1,000, because they used somebody else. But then when they looked over the film and they seen well, Bigfoot was only walking for 30 seconds, they're going to say, well, let's go ahead and add this little section on in here too as well. And that's when they added Bob Hieronymus back into the film. Okay, like I said, when I go in and I look do research and everything else like that, okay, I try to present everything I find, which I do, but I try to get answers as I'm going along. Okay, just like when I said who made the suit, everybody points out Philip Morris and stuff like that. Yeah, Philip Morris did sell him a suit, but they didn't use that suit. The suit they actually used was made out of bear hide, which I point out on some videos, and I also got my book here called Patterson and Gimlin, Bigfoot Film, 1967, which I also talk about this as well, where they actually use, and I go more detail of them using two different men in this suit. Okay. Bob Hieronymus, as I pointed out, he is not in the second walk sequence. That's not Bob Hieronymus. That's this guy right here. Okay. Now, a lot of people sit there and say, well, wait a minute now. Wait a minute. You said Bob Hieronymus is the man in the suit, but he's in this one here. He's in the first walk sequence. He's not in the second one. So see, there is truth to some of these stories. Okay. There is a lot of truth to some of these stories. It's just you have to dig deeper to find the full story. And that's what I do. I find the full story. Okay. Before I agree with anything that what people is going to tell me, that I have to look for it myself. If I don't find it, and if I don't find no evidence to it or anything else, I won't show it, because if to me, like I said, a theory is a theory, a story is a story, unless you have something to back up that story. Okay, if what we see matches that story, then I can say, okay, yeah, there you go, there's the truth. But a lot of people, like I said, they're too busy when they're analyzing this film here. They're looking at the second walk sequence, that's it, and they're only studying certain motions. They're not studying over the whole from head to toe, feet motions, arm motions, leg motions. They're not studying all of this, even though they claim they are a little here, a little there, pointing this out, pointing that out. But you got to look over the whole thing, the whole subject. Like I said, if you look at the film and you actually analyze the film and you study this film, you will see there was actually two different types of Bigfoot in this film. They're not the same. The first one in the first walk sequence is totally different than the first one in the second walk sequence. You watch the feet motions. Like I said, motions will tell you. The first walk sequence, he's more stooped over, crunched over as he's walking. His feet motions pushing off to the right. He's pushing off to the right. While his left foot's going straight up and down, but his right foot's pushing off to the right. Second walk sequence, he's standing up more straight, legs more extended, arms more extended, okay, head's more extended upright, and the feet motions, as the pattern of the feet is straight up and down, straight up and down, straight up and down. It don't kick off or nothing else like we see in the first walk sequence. Okay, I just wanted to make this video and point it out. There was not one man in the suit. There was actually two men in the suit. Bob Hieronymus was one of the men in the suit, but he's in the first walk sequence. The second walk sequence, that's a totally different man in there. And this is the man here from John Green's film and Randy DeHinden's film, which is called the Tracking Dog film. This is the man that was inside of the Bigfoot suit in the second walk sequence. Like I said, I go more in detail in my book here, Patterson and Gimlin Bigfoot Film, 1967. It's on paperback and Kindle. And description down below, you're going to see the site where you can go order this if you want. Get it on Kindle, you can read it tonight. Okay, like I said, if you study the film and stuff, Bob Hieronymus, this is only how I knew, plus what Bob Hieronymus was telling me, and studying his built size, his leg structure, his arm structure, shoulder structure, and everything else as he walks, same as we see in the Bigfoot and the PG film. But like I said, the first walk sequence, his right foot kicks out when he's walking, as you see here, but his left foot stays straight up and down motion. Okay. And when I point out in the second walk sequence, like I said, we can see that it's clearly the right foot when it comes up. It's not kicking off to the right. It's straight up and down motion. Like I said, he walks more upright, arms more extended even outward. When you walk, it's not clearly against his waist side like it is in the first walk sequence. He's more out with it, and his head's more upright. So there was actually not one man in the Patterson and Gimlin Bigfoot suit. There was actually two. Bob Hieronymus is the man in the first walk sequence, and this guy CK or KC from the Tracking Dog film, that is the man in the second walk sequence. Thank you, and don't forget to tell your friends about us. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you, and have a pleasant day.